Hello, good to have you join us on this segment of Edo Decide Studios on the network service of the NTA. Voting by the records is concluded and collation is in progress. By the records, just a recap. Edo decides, Edo state people are deciding today over 2 million voters across 2,627 polling units at 208 voting points. At the elections, we have 14 political parties, 14 governorship candidates, 12 male, 2 female candidates, and none is a person with disability. And by the records also, we have a total of 59 accredited observers, 53 national and 6 foreign observers. Well, it is says to do, we told you on the network service that we'll sustain the transmission until Edo people decide who becomes their next governor for the next 4 years. And just for updates, I have joining me the Nick Dazang, Director of Voter Education and Publicity. Good to have you join us on the studio again.
Thank you for having me.
Mike Utaha, Public Affairs Analyst and Legal Practitioner. Good to have you join us.
Thank you, Mini. Good to see you again.
And we'll be having other guests join us from other studios. But for now, just for to begin the update. The update shows that sorting and counting of votes started on scheduled time in Olua Primary School, one of the polling centers in Ego local government area of Edo State. Obehi Otobo reports.
The voting has officially ended here in Olua Primary School in Ego local government area. And now the election has entered the last stage, which is the stage of sorting and counting of votes.
And I called. Number 1. Declare.
The voting has been concluded. They are in counting stage now, and the counting is moving on very well without a problem. Any minutes from now, they will have concluded the
Quite gratifying that the counting is moving on very well, and I'm happy to have the INEC man joining us from the situation room. And what we'll be asking him now is, what is it like? And I want to link that to this much talked about INEC online portal, which is supposed to be active now. So the question is it active now? Can people see the counting and collation real time?
Yes, it is. All you need to do is to log into this portal using www.anecresults.com, and you are there, and it will ask you 1 or 2 questions which you will respond, and it will take you to view the results at the polling units where the elections have been conducted, as we have just seen. Thankfully, most of the polling units, 2,626 plus 408 voting points, most of them closed at 2:30. In fact, we received many reports that the elections were concluded at the level of the polling units by that time. Of course, there were areas where the conduct of the election started a bit late due to 1 or 2 challenges. And for example, in Oreo 1 local government, we had sporadic gunshots in 6 polling units, but the security agencies immediately intervened and the election resumed in those areas. There was also an incident in Oredo. But barring these incidents and the expected malfunctioning of some of the smart card readers, the election went peacefully, and it generally met our expectations at the end of the day. So now that we are at the level of the collation, what we advise citizens of Edo State, and Nigerians, and in fact members of the international community, is to take advantage of this portal to view the results. We deployed this particular portal 4 weeks ago when we conducted the Nasarawa State House of Assembly election. At that time, about 1,000 people accessed the portal and viewed the results as they were being entered. After they had been entered into from EC8A. And by this time, we expect that in most of these polling units where the votes would have been sorted out and counted and entered into the result sheets, it is the same result sheet from EC8A that is uploaded, and then, through that portal, you can now view it. The good thing then
quickly
also,
before we go to Benin right now,
yes,
just to ask,
yes,
we know very well that by now all kinds of results are on the street. Are these results authentic?
They cannot be. The only results that are authentic are the ones you view using that portal, and the results that we gave to polling agents and security agencies at the polling units, and the results which we entered from EC8 into Form 60E, which are also pasted at the polling units.
Okay, let me just hold you there. We'll continue from where you stopped.
Okay.
Because it's a huge deployment by the NTA, and as we know now, traffic and attention is building up towards the collation center at INEC, and NTA is already there, and I'm told Nambi is already there. Let him give us an update of what the situation is at INEC collation center. Nambi, what's the update where you are right now?
Indeed, like you said, activities are gradually shifting to the State Collation Center, which is here at the INEC state headquarters. It's raining cats and dogs, as a matter of fact. I'm just at the edge of the media center, but in spite of that, you'd notice that I'm getting drenched, as a matter of fact. But like I did say, activities are gradually shifting this way, and we're heading into yet another crucial, quite crucial, aspect of today's exercise. And we do know from the information gathered from our reporters on the ground that sorting and collation have begun in earnest in most local government collation centers across the state. Well, we do expect that when that finishes at that phase, these collations will begin to make their way towards the State Collation Center, where the final collation is expected to happen. If I would just move away a bit from the camera, and if you look this way, you would notice that media stations, our sister media stations are already making their way here to the State Collation Center, signaling that activities are gradually coming this way. But of course, like we know, the results, or rather, the build-up will culminate here, where a result would eventually be announced, Dominic.
You were in Benin in 2016, where the last elections held. Then and now, meeting up with timelines, would you say maybe in a matter of 2-3 hours they will begin collation at the INEC Center?
Well, indeed, we were here 4 years ago in 2016, but I cannot begin to speculate. Situations are different. It's still the same number of local government areas, I know, yes, but I cannot begin to speculate on when exactly results may begin to come in to the State Collation Center. But we do know from INEC that the exercise has been quite progressive. We've also heard that results are coming in. I think we should probably wait for INEC to tell us more and brief us on the progress, Omini.
What do you make of the rain falling shortly after the conclusion of elections? Is it showers of blessings after the tensions, the showers of blessings? What do you make of it?
Indeed, I've had to talk to a couple of persons around. Residents of Benin, indigenes and natives, and the rain is quite significant to some, while for others it's actually a mixed grill. Some have interpreted it to be showers of blessings. Some have said yes, it's to cool the tension. Some have said, well, Benin, it rains during the raining season. So it depends on who you're talking to, as a matter of fact, and their interpretation to the rains. Different strokes for different folks,
how the viewers are feeling at home. Everybody's itchy to know where to head. So just prospecting. If I say prospect, what would the viewers be expecting from the NT in terms of minute by minute, second by second, and up to the last minute declaration of results? Any dull moments?
Well, but I mean, that's quite easy for me to say, because I've been on these for weeks. We have had the opportunity to keep the viewer abreast of happenings in Benin. Actually, for months, we have promised extensive coverage, and I dare say we have delivered. I mean, we do not intend to give up now. We're already on ground, even before officials and ad hoc staff of INEC are here. We're on ground. We've set up shop. We have 2 web studios here. We're reaching you via broadband. We have a studio in INEC that will open up very, in fact, in a matter of minutes, the studio should be up and running. So, I mean, I can assure the viewer that you will get step-by-step announcements of the result as they come in from local government to local government until the final result is announced, Dominic.
Thank you so much. Nnamdi, before I let you go, what is the state of affairs of our crew across all the 208 voting points and 2,627 polling units? Are we good and fine?
I mean, well, we have, one of your guests actually alluded to the fact that indeed there were pockets of incidents. I mean, yes, we would agree with that, because we also, as a matter of fact, one of our crew somewhere in the hinterland were manhandled, they were harassed and pushed around. So there were quite a pockets of violent incidents, but of course, like we know, the police was quick to respond to some of these issues. But all in all, and that again has been alluded to by one of the guests there in the studio, it's been generally peaceful. It's been very peaceful, I dare say. And you know, in the build-up to today's exercise, there were fears, there were worries. A lot of people were quite tense. I mean, not certain of what the outlook would be. But I mean, by midday, we had a sense of the direction. We knew for sure that people could come out to participate in the votes. We knew that people were eager to be part of the exercise. We actually saw an impressive turnout in most of the places where I visited. I mean, in relative terms to the number of registered voters, we know that about between 75 to 78% percentage of registered voters were built to participate in this exercise. We do not have the final figures yet, but I mean, from what we have seen, I think it's a peaceful, it's a calm exercise so far.
Before I let you go, please, quickly, what is your observation regarding the observer status? By the records we hear, there are 53 national observers across various groups and 6 foreign observer groups across various platforms. From your own observation, what was it like?
Twice now you have said, before I let you go, I'm practically drenched here because I'm just in the rain. But I'll answer you very quickly. And there are a couple of observers that we met in the field. We spoke to them. I would not make submissions for them now, because we do expect that preliminary results, or rather preliminary assessment of the exercise will be coming in from some of these groups and their personnel quite soon. In fact, anytime from now, we expect the report from Yaga Africa, their personnel on the ground. I mean, across the 18 local government areas of the state, we have some other groups as well who deployed monitoring officers as well. We met some of them on the field. We interviewed a couple of them, and they made statements alluding to the fact that the exercise has been peaceful. We will hold on and get some of these reports. I think they'll begin to come in from today.
So much, Nnamdi. We'll get back to you when you're ready for the collation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Omini.
Okay. That was Nnamdi Odipo updating us from the INEC Collation Center, where there's a build-up, like I said before we went to him. Attention, traffic, interest is now towards the INEC Collation Center in Benin City. But INEC says the online portal and one of the other app I'll talk about later is the Z-Pad. I'll come to that. But let me go to Utaha. Now, from what you saw where we are up to now, 2016 Edo governorship election, 2020.
Well, let me start by commending various stakeholders who have been part of this process. Just like we're having the conversation with Nnamdi Odigbo, there was palpable apprehension as to the outcome of this election. And from what we have seen so far, we need to commend various stakeholders who have been part of this process. And INEC is one of them. The security agencies, of course, the traditional institution in Edo State, the people of Edo State generally, because everybody has talked about the impressive turnout at this election, in spite of the apprehensions we had, and the tensions that had built up over the weeks and months preceding this election. So I think it is something salutary. It is something we need to take note of. There have been hiccups here and there. I read a report online where the governor of Edo and the candidate of the People's Democratic Party had complaints about the amount of time it took for him to vote and all of that. I mean, basic issues of this nature are to be expected, but we hope that as we move from this off-cycle election to other elections, there will be significant improvement in, voting time and all of that. But basically, I think we need to celebrate what has happened in Edo, even before the election results are announced.
Okay. Let's speak to the Electoral Act. Now, after the election, whether you agree with me or not, tensions during the election is just like the football match until the result is declared, the winner declared.
Yes.
Tensions will be building up, although it started dying down, but it has its own degree. Now, what attitude should the electorate be exhibiting at this time?
I think we should continue with what we have seen already. The people of Edo State have come out in their numbers to decide. They have decided already, because what is happening now is just the sorting, collation and counting and all of that. So the people have decided already. And I think if the process goes as we have seen, it is credible enough, people should accept the outcome of this election and go home feeling satisfied that they have participated in the democratic process as far as Edo is concerned. There will be lessons to be learned. I know INEC will have a post-mortem where they will, of course, learn lessons from this off-cycle election and feed it back into the process of conducting elections in Ondo State and then subsequently in 2023.
Okay. Well, if you're just joining us, it's Edo Decide. As you can see, INEC says you don't need to rely on social media for the results. Just go onto the INEC online portal, which I will allow Dazan to give an update about. Then after that, you tell us what is this mystery about Z-Pad.
Okay, let me
just read through the online portal, because so many results are
even without your prompting, media. I will do that, because I want as many people as possible to log into it. You log into the portal using www.inecresults, that's S at the end, .com, and then you can view the outcome in the polling units where results the conduct of the elections have concluded and results have been entered into Form EC8. Actually, what you are going to view is that results sheet, the EC8A. It is what is being uploaded onto the portal. And all the results in all the polling units are going to be uploaded on that portal. And what we have done is, like I mentioned earlier on, in Nasarawa State, about 1,500 people looked into that state constituency election and viewed the results. But in Edo, considering the size and the interest that the election has generated, we have made allowance for 2 million people to log in simultaneously without any glitches and without cloaking the portal. So as many as 2 million people simultaneously can view it. And we feel that by putting in place this portal, number one, we increase the transparency measures we already have in place, and we also reduce the distrust the Nigerians have for the election management body. Recall that since 2011, what we have done is to also write out the result in that form EC8A that is normally turned and given to agents of the political parties and candidates and other stakeholders like the security agents and observers. And then it is entered into Form 60E. It's a poster form, very big, and it is pasted at the wall at that particular polling unit. The idea is any voter who is interested can view it and know the outcome of the result in that polling unit where he has voted. And we expect that any serious political party or candidate, should have access to the results through the polling agents, because each time we enter these results into Form EC8A, the same result is torn and given to them for safekeeping, and they can always deploy it in court if, for example, the final results do not reflect what is at the polling unit. And we expect that in the stages leading up to the final collation, where the return will be made, we expect that any candidate what is sold would also have agents representing him at the registration area centers. Okay. That is the wards. And in Edo State, we have 192 wards. We expect that any candidate who is serious about the conduct of this election and who wants the sanctity of these results to be kept should ask his agent to be at that rack center to protect his interests. By the same token, we expect that he will nominate some other agents or agent to represent him at the local government collection center, because it is at the local government collection center that they will depart to the state collection center, where all the results will be put together and then a return is finally made. So the process is so transparent that people don't need to go and waylay our staff on the road. Because if someone has viewed the result at the polling unit level, I mean, what alteration or change can you visit on it? You can't. Okay. And our guidelines allow you to have someone to represent you, to protect your interests, to have access to this tier off. And we give the same tier off at the polling unit, we give it at the RA, we give it at the local government, and at the state level. So when you put them together, if you have reservations about what has happened, you can deploy them in parties to do, rather than waylaying innocent staff on the road and visiting mayhem on them. That's the way to go. Okay. And at the end of the day, if we continue to do that, our elections will be clean. Because until we introduce this results portal, there have been issues with the collation centers. People go and attack them. And some of us find it ridiculous that you have access to this result. Why are you attacking the centers? And it's the same results that you are giving at the polling unit level, at the registration area level, that will go to the local government level and to the state level.
Let me hold you there for now. I understand our other guest, Ibrahim Modibo, has joined us. Ibrahim Modibo is the public affairs analyst. Ibrahim, good to see you on Edo Decides. We had before election, and today is election. Just after Kogi is Edo State election. Coming from what happened Kogi and what is happening now in Edo, how do you just oppose them?
Thank you very much once again, for this invitation to be on this program of great importance. I have been following with keen interest the performance of NTA, especially this coverage, is fantastic. It's really wonderful. We've been getting frank to a fault, so to say, analysis of everything that is happening in Edo, and I'm very pleased, very happy to associate myself with this program and also the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, because when he came in, he made some promises, of which opening the political space for mass participation and also entrenchment of democracy through the ballot box rather than the barrel of the gun. I am so happy with what I've seen so far. I must commend the INEC, all the organs of INEC, from the chairman to the lowest person in the office, and also the security agencies, for this wonderful performance. And honestly and sincerely, I must say that we are on the route to a viable and vibrant democratic culture, a culture that will institute the sanctity of the ballot box. We've seen with the way and manner the security agencies and also INEC has been able to conduct itself, it has shown to the world that we can do it. We have seen transparency, we've seen credibility in these elections. We've also seen that the issue of snatching of ballot boxes or using thugs could be checkmated. Unlike what has happened in Kogi, for best reasons which I don't know, I feel very sad, or I felt sad when I got reports from Kogi talking about snatching of ballot boxes, having hoodlums and what have you. But in today's election in Edo, so far what I've seen, it has shown that INEC, if it says it will, it will. And honestly and sincerely, the way and manner of the conduct of these elections, I think by 2023, we're on a major roadmap to electoral process that will be seen as transparent, very credible, and also electoral process that will be anchored on the rule of law. Electoral process that will be anchored on the major tenets of democracy. I strongly believe that Nigeria as a country is moving forward. And I just hope and pray that what has happened so far that I've seen, which seems from all indications very transparent, very credible and peaceful. I must thank also the Oba of Benin and also major stakeholders that have been able to bring all the major contestants on the table to sign peace accord. And this has worked. I just hope and pray that we'll move from point A to point B, from point B to point C. I pray at the end of the day, whatever is a stumbling block, the Almighty God will turn it to major stepping stones for us to achieve a viable and vibrant democratic culture through the ballot box. So I pray.
Ibrahim, still on you. Imagine if INEC put in place all the deployments and by today no electorate came out to vote. What I mean here is, if you commended INEC, do the electorate in Edo State also deserve commendation? Yes.
Honestly, the electorates in Edo State must be commended. Honestly, they've stolen my heart already. The way and manner these electorates have been able to put themselves in order, the way and manner they've listened to the Oba and also major stakeholders in the polity, unlike the days gone by. If we look at the parameters used before this government came in the years gone by, we've seen that the whole electoral processes were militarized, so to say. We've seen, thugs coming to overpower security agencies and what have you, snatching ballot boxes, and also bringing in this Ururu and Magomago into the political space. But in today's election, from what I've seen so far, if I am going to base my judgment from what I've seen so far on the ground and using all the parameters of democratic practice, I strongly believe that we're on the move, we're on a solid and vibrant move towards a viable democratic culture where the ballot would count. INEC has done its best. The people are also going to be commended for being very patriotic, very nationalistic in approach, and also looking at what they've done so far, I think we've been able to move forward. And in the days gone by where we had things were moving from sublime to ridiculous, where mediocrity and iniquity ruled, now we have a solid political grace, solid political culture, where we've seen the ballot box counting, where we've seen people going in accordance with the dictates of the electoral process, putting on their masks, creating the political the gap in terms of trying to confront the challenges of COVID-19. I think so far so good. I'm very impressed. I feel that as a Nigerian today, I can hold my head so high to say that, look, Edo, you've done it very well.
Kemodibo, let me go to Mike. Mike, with the introduction and deployment of technology by INEC, will you be amazed if we see here in the last, the final analysis that people destroyed result sheets, snatched by the ballot? Will you be amazed?
No, I won't.
Or is it like a culture is entrenched?
I won't, but it will be really unfortunate if that happens. I mean, here in Nigeria we have had situations where somehow or other you're sitting down in your room and suddenly you start receiving alerts that your account has been tampered with and all of that. It sounds so odd, if someone from Europe or some other part of the world hears that, they will be like, is this possible? But anything is possible in Nigeria. So it's entirely possible to have that kind of situation. But I know INEC must have also gone through a rigorous process to adopt the kind of technology that we are now deploying to this election. And I hope that it will be foolproof, or even if it is not foolproof, at least it will make it difficult for those who want to, negatively impact our democratic process. I really want to emphasize the point made by my good friend Modibo, the role that the National Peace Committee has played in this election. Before now, we have seen a National Peace Committee that was much more concerned, I should say. I mean, I know it was about resources and all of that, but we saw their presence at the national level. But in this Edo State election, the presence was quite felt, and it does appear to mean that they have also made significant contributions to what we have seen today. Between 8 o'clock when the polls opened, right up to 3 o'clock, I have not received any report of anybody who was killed or any, there were pockets. I mean, there was some violence in one polling unit, but we have not reported any loss of life, maybe later. And for a Nigerian election, I mean, for much more experienced democracies, that's very normal. But for an election that is taking place in Nigeria and in Edo State in particular, I mean, this is something that we need to celebrate. So we would like to see more of such activities by the National Peace Committee. I hope they will be present in Ondo, and the people of Ondo will conduct themselves pretty much the same way like the people of Edo have done. And I'm sure it takes a lot to be able to do that, and the stakeholders will be there to provide the enabling environment.
Okay, still updating on collation. Voters at various wards in Ikpoba Oka came out en masse to vote candidates of their choice, and they waited patiently for the sorting and counting of their votes. Eugenia Ndubisi has the update.
Concluded here in Western Boys High School in Ikpoba local government area. This ward has 38 units, and people are really the voters are waiting patiently for their votes to be counted. I have with me Mr.
Mokaro.
Okay, I have Mr. Michael Mokaro here with me. Sir, can you tell us what is the situation here?
Yes, the election was quite peaceful. We are all voted, and we are waiting to get the results because we are told to defend our votes.
The election has been going on well, at least with the presence of heavy security men and women. I think that has helped the election to go smoothly, free.
Ubeku was 7, which comprises of 39 polling units. Elections have been concluded, and counting also is almost concluded. We have some people here, Mr.
Blessing Obasui.
He wants to tell us his feeling about the election.
Generally, the election has been very, very peaceful.
Very successful. Security overwhelmed. Everywhere was cool and calm.
Peacefulness in the area, so we don't have problem.
In Benin, Eugenia NDBC, NTA News.
I'm sure before the end of Edo decides, some of the tongue twister names from Edo State will get acquainted with them. But quickly, what lessons will INEC draw from Edo to Ondo, given the fact that truly, if the technology deployed plays out like Mike and Modibo has said, will it be maybe a walkover in Ondo State?
Well, every election is peculiar. And we are not going to take things for granted. We will take the lessons we have learned from this election and factor them in the conduct of the Ondo governorship election and 15 other by-elections that we have scheduled for 31st October 2020. You mentioned the ZPAT, for example, and I don't want to shy away from that. What we do in INEC as a policy,
want to know about it.
Yes, as a policy, what we do is that when we want to introduce any new technology, we do a pilot. And we use a small election to do the pilot, because you don't deploy a new technology in a big election. It will create its own challenges and generate a lot of controversy. So as a policy, what we do is that going back to the smart card reader and the permanent voter card, if you recall, we first of all we did a pilot in the 6 geopolitical zones, and we deliberately chose rural and rustic areas. Even in Lagos, we chose what translates into a village in Yoruba, Abule of Onibongo, in Ikeja local government. So because then those opposed to it, ferociously so and vehemently so, said that our rural people could not use it. So we deliberately now deployed it in areas that by any parameter you could consider rural. And the smart card reader and permanent voter card were widely embraced to the consternation of the naysayers. And by the same token, what we did in Nasarawa State by-election was to deploy the ZPAT. And you know, each technology has its shelf life. Your computer, for example, maximum you can use it for 4 years. That is how the manufacturers design it, because they have to be in business. The smart card, the PVC was also designed to last for 10 years. And the intentment of the commission and working with other agencies was that after 10 years, NIMISI, the National Identity Management Commission, would have come up with the national identity card. And then we'll now use the national identity card to supplant the permanent voter card, because the permanent voter card does not have the kind of longevity that the national identity card is supposed to have. So going forward, what we wanted to do was to gradually phase out the permanent voter card and supplant or replace it with the national identity card. Unfortunately, the gathering of data by NIMISI has not gained the same traction as that of INEC. So as we speak now, INEC has the largest database of any set of Nigerians in the country. So when you look at all this together, and the fact that these PVCs have antennas embedded in them, and people don't generally keep them well. Some sit on them, they put them in their purses, and the antennae get broken. And that explains why you can see systematically that we're having challenges with the smart card reader reading the PVCs. Okay. That is the reason. And that means that you need now to do a revalidation of the registration.
That's a major challenge during this election?
Yes, that explains why you see the malfunctioning, the so-called malfunctioning of the smart card reader.
That.
Now, to bypass, to do that, we wanted to supplement that by introducing the ZPAT, which will also capture your facials and other explanations or information that we captured when we are registering you. Unfortunately, by the time we deployed it in Nasarawa State, it became very evident that we needed time to perfect it. And given the sensitivity of the election that we conducted today, the kind of interest worldwide it has generated, it will not be wise to now deploy it. And then you are dealing with COVID-19, you are dealing with logistics, you are now dealing with ZPAT. So we now decided to defy it. We have not jettisoned it. We want to perfect it. Once we perfect it, we'll deploy it seamlessly in other elections. But for now, I mean, for today's election, we kept aside the ZPAT, and that is the reason.
But the online portal is active.
But as we speak, the online portal, INEC results portal, can be accessed using www.anecresults.com.
It's being displayed on our screen. You can see it on our screen.
In fact, the last time we deployed it in the Nasarawa State House of Assembly election, the country director of International Federation of Electoral Systems, IFES, you know, when we did a meeting, a virtual meeting, the first thing he told me is, you know, I tested that portal. I thought it was a joke, but it was for real. It worked. And even
so just to douse tension and reassure the candidates, reassure the electorate.
So the candidates,
so the issue is that what I mean is that, for instance, does it now means that if you're in the habit of hijacking ballot boxes,
there is no need for it,
or destroying result sheets,
there is no need. In fact, all along since 2011, there was no need for anybody to destroy anything. And we have a perfect way, even if you destroy certain things, of reconstructing them. That is what people don't know. We had an incident when I was in FCT, when during the collation, some people caused commotion and took away the result sheets. Unknown to them, you know, the police were given a copy, and they kept custody of that result sheet. Those chaps didn't know that in addition to that of the police, we had other copies. And then we invited them to a meeting, and lo and behold, when the police, you know, brought out their own copy, very neat copy, they were speechless. So, you know, some of these shenanigans are not necessary. We put our children, the ad hoc staff, in harm's way. And you see, stakeholders need to appreciate that the staff conducting these elections are your children. You need to take care of them. But permit me to use this opportunity to pay tribute to all stakeholders that took part in this election, particularly the ad hoc staff. They have shown considerable patriotism. The political parties, in spite of their challenges when we were building up to this process, we need also to salute and encourage them. We need also to appreciate development partners, civil society organizations, the media. You know, the media have shown more than casual interest in the conduct of this election. The people of Edo State who came out in spite of the initial violence that attended the campaigns to come out peacefully to vote. And I want to pay special tribute to General Abdulsalami's National Peace Committee and to the convener of that particular committee. But most especially, I want to pay tribute to the Oba. He gave us more than robust support. He gave us muscular support. And his intervention, you know, has worked magic. And if you may permit me, let me salute him in the traditional way.
It's okay. We'll still go to that.
Oba Atokwe. So that is the. So
we'll still go to that.
Thank you.
Kept Mike and Ibrahim silent for some time, but quickly, you're coming from the situation room.
Yes.
What's the update regarding malpractice? As much as you have talked about technology.
Yes.
Have we recorded any case, maybe destruction of INEC vehicles, INEC material, INEC staff?
No vehicle has been destroyed, but like I said, in Orenwo, our staff there were sporadic gunshots earlier in the morning, but through the intervention of one of our national commissioners who was there, retired AVM Muazu retired, and the DPO in charge of that local government, the police immediately intervened, and we resumed election in that place and concluded. So We also had one case of ballot box snatching, unfortunately. And then, of course, there were some reports.
Does that suffice?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
It does not detract from the quality of the election that we have conducted.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that everything is 100%. We work on that and ensure that subsequently we add more value to the conduct of elections.
Okay, thank you so much so far. Well, it's not about Edo Decide in Abuja. As soon as our studio in Benin is ready, we'll go to Benin for updates. And I'm sure by the time we'll go to Benin, what Dazang has talked about, ballot box snatching and other malpractices, the police there would have told us whether arrests have been made or how far the investigations are going. Also, as soon as INEC is ready, we shall go to Namdi, who will give us update of the situation there. But quickly, Mike, before I go to Modibo, from what Dazang has said, would you say that as much as the electoral culture in Nigeria is evolving, it has not reached the destination? Is it evolving towards what we're looking at?
I'm not quite as hopeful as Ibrahim Modibo put it earlier. He talked about solid democratic culture, and I'm wondering if you have an election where you're deploying 31,000 police officers, you have military deployments, you have deployments of practically everybody who is in uniform, then there is a problem, really. Maybe not with those deploying, but maybe with the actors, some of the actors. I think our politicians really need to get to a point where we will agree amongst ourselves, I mean politicians that is, that this should not be a do-or-die thing. And we have commended stakeholders here, and I think Mr. President needs to be commended also for his statesmanly statement that he made. You know, we have seen situations in the past where elections have been declared at the highest level in this country as do-or-die situations. But we had a situation, we have a president who now says, look, let's play by the rules. He is an interested party in this election, but he came out as a statesman and said, let's play by the rules. Respect the laws, cast your votes peacefully and all of that. I think it's commendable also. So the politicians have a critical role to play in moving us from where we are to that solid democratic culture.
My concern where I want you to pinch, Ibrahim talked about solid political culture. Elections is an element of democracy.
Absolutely.
Right? And I was specific about the electoral culture. It's a deliberate question. It's possible that if we have maybe a solid political culture, the electoral governance may have some minuses. So I'm saying, from what INEC has done so far, he has talked about the fact that if you snatch ballot box today or you destroy results sheet, it doesn't suffice because the INEC online portal has the main results. So if you destroy the field, what the portal says is what will be taken. So given that, will you say the electoral culture is evolving towards where we are looking at?
Again, I mean, I'm sorry to say this, Omini, but I'm not as optimistic as some other persons are. I mean, there's still room for improvement. And I say this precisely because as much as we're hopeful that things will get better, let us not be overtly optimistic about what we have witnessed in Edo. There might be a relapse. So my position really is those who are involved in the electoral process in Nigeria have to redouble their efforts. And we really need to see this in the next election, which is Ondo State. You know, and a lot needs to be done. One, the volume of resources that we deploy towards election, whether it is by INEC or it's by security agencies or it's by political parties and all of that, it's something that we really need to reflect upon. Why would someone want to kill another person just to get into office? There must be a reason. And it's because public offices are very attractive. What do we do to reduce the attraction to public offices in such a way that anybody who is aspiring to public office is aspiring to service? And will not want to kill a fellow Nigerian to get into that office.
Let's hear what Modibo will say in this regard. Modibo, you talked about an entrenched political culture, but I tried to scratch it a bit to say an electoral culture. If the political culture is entrenched, it could be we still have minuses on the electoral governance. Now, from what INEC has put in place, how far, how well, and what is your take on it?
Thank you very much, Omene. Unlike my good friend Mike, that seems to be a bit pessimistic over, expressing pessimism, over the processes of getting a vibrant and viable democratic culture or political culture, so to say. I'm highly optimistic. I am an incurable optimist in the sense that, look, elections is just like studying a human being. In social psychology, or better still, in the study of a human being, nobody is perfect. You cannot get 100%. That doesn't mean, assuming without necessarily conceding to naysayers, doomsday, predictionists, and also coupon clippers. They have been expressing doubts that this election will be characterized by violence, and as if the whole world is turning upside down. I know people have shamed Nigerians with this kind of attitude by doing this on the right way. I want to believe, my good friend Mike knows very well, that if you have a son that was coming almost last in the class, if he comes to number 10, do you still carry cane and beat him? You have to encourage him. You have to tell him, look, you are intelligent. I have confidence in you. Build confidence in the person. And honestly, by the time the next class comes in, he might likely come to number 2 or 3. There's nothing impossible. So exactly this is it, how democratic culture is being built. Now, we've been battering INEC left, right, and center. But if INEC has done well, let us commend them. That is the only way by which a normal democratic culture can be built. And Nigerians, honestly and sincerely, I was even afraid. The whole of last night I was thinking, I said, look, how I wish the elections in Edo will come to pass, and then we'll see a viable and vibrant electoral process that will produce a governor that's acceptable to Nigerians at large, and the Edo people in particular. And what has happened today? If I were to be among these two gladiators, if I lose, believe me, I will never go to court. I will hold my head so high. I know that it is the dictates of the democratic process. It is the ballot box.
Let me hold you there. I'll come back to you quickly. Nick Dazan, you're busy, and you're supposed to be going back to the situation room. Maybe from there you'll be giving us updates of what developments are in Edo State. But before you leave, what word will you leave with us before you depart from the studio?
Well, I will just take off from the tangent, from the trajectory he started, which is that democracy itself is work.
I'm not buying from Modibo's angle too.
Democracy is work in progress.
Okay.
Even the advanced democracies always admit that it's work in progress. And what we are, I think it would be premature, preposterous to celebrate. We have done well, yes. But we need to take elections to a level where they become routine, where we don't have to do the kind of deployment that he mentioned, where people don't have to be conscious that an election is taking place, except perhaps when experts, pundits, and members of the election management body are discussing it the way we are doing on television and on radio. Then we would have arrived when elections really become routine, and when, of course, our processes have been developed in such a way as to take away the need for someone to snatch a ballot box, the need for someone to attack an INEC staff, the need for someone to buy votes. We need to take it to surpass. Once we surpass that level, then I think we can shout hooray. But for now, we still have a lot of work, and on the part of the Commission, we will be learning lessons, and we will be factoring the lessons in the conduct of subsequent elections. It's the joy of some of us who have very few years in the Commission that at least the elections are improving, and we want to live like all good actors when the ovation is very loud. So we want to see how we can sustain this, so that you live on a very, very exultant note. You can go to the village when they are holding a meeting and they invite you, you take your place with pride as a former director of INEC. That's what I'm looking for.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Yes.
Are you now saying that the new good actors don't live when the vision is high? Thank you so much, Nick Daza, Director of Public Voter Education and Publicity of INEC.
Thank you very much.
We have to allow you go now, and we believe maybe in a matter of minutes, before we shut down the studio for today, you will give us perspective from Edo State.
Thank you, I appreciate.
So we're not done yet. We shall be going to Benin as soon as our studio there is ready, and also if our team at the INEC Coalition Center is ready. But let's go to Modibo before I come back to Mike. Modibo, you heard what Dazang said before leaving us. Where do you go from here?
I think Dazang is being shy of telling us the truth on the conduct of these elections. I think he must commend INEC for doing a good job, honestly. Honestly, INEC has done well. And I commend the government, just like my friend Mike actually stated, Mr. President, the current government, for at least laying a solid foundation for transparent and credible electoral process. The issue of this bringing the whole militarization, so to say, of bringing security agencies and what have you, it was because some people have been able to instill fear. Right from the one when the campaign started, we'll see violence manifesting itself. And that instilled real fear into Nigerians. That was why the government, in its wisdom, have decided to deploy the security agencies to maintain peace and tranquility, to make sure that lives are safe. You see, democracy or electoral process, so to say, it is not as if you are going to the mosque or you are going to church, why you have everybody sitting in peace and we have an imam or a pastor leading the congregation. No. This is politics. It is where the ballot box counts. And people, because of the issue of governance in which the whole system has to a large extent been made so robust, that people feel that, look, once I get into power, I have everything. I control the people, control the economy, and whatever I want to do, I do. And that is why there is this keen competition that will lead to violence and what have you. The kind of robust this that has been attached to governance, it is what is causing all this. And therefore, we strongly believe that with elections that are forthcoming, if INEC has been able to set a standard of this magnitude where from the portals you are able to see them plugging in all the results, I just hope that by 2023, now they've started in Nasarawa State, they did very well. So in Kogi, in Edo today, they have improved. And therefore, maybe by the time we go to Ondo, honestly, we are going to sing hallelujah. But in the meantime, INEC has done very well. Whoever tells you that INEC has not done very well, the security agents have not done very well, and also the Edo people, I'm very proud of them. Democracy, I strongly believe, as I've said, I'm an incurable optimist. I believe that Nigeria is on the right track of change, and that by the grace of God, Nigeria will have a solid democratic culture that will be based on the tenets of democracy, where the ballot box counts. Omane, over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, Mike, as we speak, I'm sure the electorate in Ondo State, they are watching.
Yes.
The political actors in Ondo State are watching. It's a matter of weeks. It will be the turn of Ondo. Ondo decides.
Yeah.
So, what will you be telling them? If so far, so well, this is what we are seeing in Edo. At least, like you said, they have decided, but we're only waiting for the umpire to do a declaration of what it is in terms of total votes, all that, invalid votes, all that. What should the people of Ondo State be learning from here?
It turns out both states are cosmopolitan states with high intellectual content. At some point in the history of this country, I think Ondo State had the highest number of professors that you could think of, and that's an enviable record, and we need to see this reflect in the conduct of the forthcoming election, particularly considering the fact that Edo has shown clearly that we can conduct elections, even with palpable apprehension. We can conduct election that can take a pass mark. And it starts with the political class. The political class, like I said before, must come to the realization that it's about service. It's not about the perks of office. It's not about the opportunities that office provides and all of that. It's about service. And if the people say this is the person they want in office, then the will of the people should be allowed to prevail. Then it's also about the political parties. We have seen cases where internal democratic processes of political parties have really been trampled, under the feet, and this again is something. And when I say I'm sounding a bit pessimistic, it is because of these building blocks that we are not seeing. I mean, for goodness sake, this is 21 years into the democratic practice without any interruption. Why should we, for one moment, think in terms of the courts determining who holds office in this country? This is something that I expect the political class to think about. Why should we campaign, find those who will contest elections, go into elections, the people come out, like today, it was raining in Edo, some people came out to vote and all of that, and then ultimately we allow the courts to determine who is going to hold office. These are some of the lessons that these are some of the areas we need to reflect upon. So my message to the people of Edo is they must do the same thing that, Ondo. They must do the same thing Edo has done, but improve on what Edo has done. And lots of stakeholders are involved. We mentioned the National Peace Committee, we mentioned INEC, we mentioned the traditional institution, we mentioned the religious institutions, the political parties, and virtually all stakeholders must literally have their hands on deck to ensure that we see a replay of Edo in Ondo State.
Okay. Modibo, from what is happening in terms of introduction of technology in the electoral process in Nigeria, if eventually it stabilizes, what message do you have for thugs? Because it appears thuggery in elections is gradually becoming old-fashioned. What message do you have for those who believe that every election they'll be hired to go and cause confusion? Do you have a message for them?
Thank you, Omene. The period of thuggery and then the period of thinking as an analog person is gone. Now we're in digital age where technology strives. I strongly believe that Nigeria has come of age. Agreed. We're just about 20, 21 years of this democracy. There might be pitfalls here and there. Look at even America. America has been there having democratic culture or having why the ballot box rules for over 200 years. America is democratic in the past 200 years. But unfortunately, up to today, there are still problems with democracy. You can see that there are problems of technology there. There are problems here and there associated with trying to find the instrumentality of governance. That is by way of the ballot box. So Nigeria is on isolation. Nigeria is a country that has been guided by reason, and also I strongly believe it's a country where people should think more of service to humanity rather than the perks of office. People should think of offering themselves for service, because governance, it's all about service. Both religious books have stated that by the time we all go home, one thing that is certain, we must be accountable to God. When you are serving, when you've been in governance, what did you do? If you have decided to steal like a rat, put it in your mouth, carry in your hands, and then dipping them into the hole, it is your own. But we strongly believe that everybody must be accountable. And accountability is what matters. If you are rendering service, render service. By the time you've gone, people will think of you and say, oh, this is Modibo's road. Having done this, or this Modibo Stadium. You see, this is what service entails. It is not all about looting, as we've seen some of these people are doing, some of these people in governance. They just feel that governance is all about looting. for one's self-aggrandizement. And that is not it. So now the issue of thuggery, going back to it. Thugs, the idea of thuggery is being phased out gradually. And I can tell you that as young people, dispense your energy, dispense your mentality, dispense your focus towards building a viable democratic culture, a viable Nigerian state, a viable Nigerian a country that is guided by the ballot box. The sanctity of the ballot box must be more predominant. The preponderance of thuggery must allow for peace, tranquility, and also viable democratic culture. Anything less than that is unacceptable. We believe that with this technology now that INEC has been able to introduce, even if you say you're going to snatch the ballot box, once they've been able to make the entries there, it's gone. You can't do anything about it. So therefore, just don't dispense your energy in a fruitless venture, or don't put your life in danger, because if you go and start snatching ballot box, you know what will happen to you. The law will catch up onto you. That is why today you see police, army, and everything dispensed in Edo. But with this conduct, I just hope and pray that almost every state of this country, wherever we are going to have elections, will have a very formidable electoral process that will be in sync and in tune with modern democratic culture, where the ballot box will be of more paramount rather than the barrel of the gun. How many?
People. Now, Mike, in the last elections, during the coverage, our team of reporters kept having these repeated complaints: vote buying, vote buying, yes, vote buying. It looks as though, as much as, well, maybe we still have pockets of it, I can't establish that for now. Yes. It has been relegated to the background also. We have not heard so much about vote buying. Yes. So should that mean that the electorate has moved a step up?
Excuse me. Yeah, we can interpret that to mean, yes, to use your words, the electorate has moved a step further. But it also can be interpreted to mean INEC has raised the bar a little bit higher. And if you recall, we started witnessing massive or very obvious cases of vote buying in the Anambra election. And it was at a time when INEC had decided, I think INEC had just taken the decision then to use the smart card reader. So at that time, my impression is politicians were beginning to see that, look, with the smart card reader, if we snatched ballot boxes or we falsified results or we introduced violence or whatever, it might not be helpful. So in an environment that has pervasive poverty, let's leave falsification of results, ballot snatching and all of that, and try to convince people to vote in a particular manner through vote buying. But like you rightly pointed out, that has also reduced tremendously, and it's because INEC is constantly raising the bar. But I totally agree with you. There has been some improvement in terms of political, I would say political understanding of the Nigerian people, and they're beginning to ask fundamental questions. Why should we collect peanuts, vote for people who will come in and not deliver on service and all of that, and I would like to see a significant improvement in what we have seen already. And again, to commend INEC, we've seen pockets of prosecutions here and there of people who were arrested, who engaged in vote buying and all of that. So we need to see more and more of this. And when I say that I am a bit pessimistic, it's not that progress is not being made, but I'm just making the point that we have not gotten there yet. And we need to consistently continue with these efforts that we're making towards getting us to where we aspire to be. My good friend Modibo had mentioned the electoral system in the United States. And this is 2020, and America has had its experience with democracy for more than 200 years, really. But conversations within the last 6 weeks or so around the American elections is about whether you could use the postal service to vote in a manner that ensures the integrity of the vote. I'm not quite sure if 5 years ago that conversation had come up, people will have doubts about whether the American election, for instance, will be efficacious. But this conversation is coming on. So it's a constant struggle. This is a country that has experienced over 300 years with democracy, constitutional democracy. But you still have these teething problems, particularly with the health situation that we have on ground now. So it's a constant struggle, and we shouldn't let off our guard at all. I would like to see a situation where our democracy and electoral culture will get to the point where kids in a nursery school, for instance, will be conscious enough to elect who they think should be their class prefect. You know, indeed in homes, in homes, we should have elections to determine who is the head of house. That's the level I really would like us to see. I'm just joking, but really we need to be conscious about elections as a credible process of determining who leads us. So whether it's in church, it's in the mosque, it's in the classroom, it's in the market square, it's anywhere, we should get to the point where we have such trust in the electoral process as a viable pathway to leadership recruitment.
Okay. Now that Modibo is right here now, if it means physical, I'll separate you.
Oh, no. Modibo is my very good friend. We really disagree.
Yeah, no, we really.
Well, most times they say you forget the person to talk about. INEC rep just left here to the situation room, and we'll be getting updates from that end. And by the time we go to Benin, where our studio is standing by to join us very soon, we'll get updates on the developments over there. Coalition is a build-up. But as we speak, INEC has just told us here, just for emphasis, that any result out there, whether by way of news or whatever, is fake. And you have news flying over right now of the result already. Now, let's speak to fake news during elections. Fake news during elections.
You see, by the tenets of our profession, the journalism practice, you'll agree with me that if you look at the social responsibility theory of the Nigerian press or the media.
But first, do you agree it's a problem?
It is. That is why I'm trying to build up, an introductory aspect. By virtue of our professional ethics and etiquette of journalism, social responsibility theory presupposes that for any media man that is practicing this profession, you must have some ingredients that will form news or news background to be credible. One, is there balance? Is there thoroughness? Is there objectivity? These are some of the core values that, propels journalism practice to greater heights. What we have now, or some of these guys in social media, whoever has a recorder and maybe has been able to get, a handset, he automatically becomes a journalist. That is why we say this practice is in danger. Journalism is in danger because fake news presupposes that it is fake. And anything that is fake, it is not credible. There is no objectivity, there is no thoroughness, then there is no balance, then credibility comes to question. Therefore, consequently, what we need to look at is all these news are flying around. INEC, right from day one, has cautioned against people sending out news or stories online based on their own figments, some of them based on their own figments of imagination. Because some of these guys are political. They dance to the whims and caprices of the political class. Once they have an interested party, they go out, churn out some of these figures that are incredible. If you look at the distance, you might find one of these portals carrying figures that even overweighs the actual figure that has been brought out by INEC, just for selfish reasons, and also in order to create confusion. Therefore, the most credible portals are the electronic media, especially the radio and television, since they are by the rules and guidelines of NBC, not supposed to announce this result until there is confirmation.
By the umpire.
By the umpire. Therefore, anything short of that is fake news. If you start tuning out figures, that incredible figures that are not even there, that is what propels this danger that we're seeing today. If you look at the way fake news have been going around, that is why today you see military people, police, civil defense, everybody has been mobilized to Edo because of fake news. Because most of these news items that have been coming out from Edo as a build-up to the electoral process, which we saw today, has been motivated by this fake news. You see people say, hey, this thing is happening here, this one is being killed. We have to look at the issue of fake news. The issue of fake news is central to the tenets of journalism practice. That's why when I came first, I said, look, I must commend NTA. I must commend almost all the television houses that are covering and the radio houses that are covering this election. They've done very well because we've been seeing pictures being matched with words. But under the guidance of some of my professional colleagues, quote and unquote, they will just turn out whatever. You don't see pictures, but you only see figures. And these figures can be manufactured under a tree. Somebody will sit down under a tree and start writing that, look, PDP take this allocation, APC take this allocation, WPC take this allocation. So that is where we're having problems.
Okay, if you're interested in this, we used to hear some development organizations talk about follow the projects, follow the money. In this case, follow the results. And in following the results, just on our screen, you see the INEC portal. INEC says that portal is on real time now. Whatever you see there is what is happening in Edo State. Anything outside that portal by INEC instruction is deemed fake. So be guided and don't follow sensationalism, please. Thank you so much. And proceeding further, the INEC man who left us have mentioned pockets of this year, right, but it was not as full-blown as we had in previous elections.
That's true. But just before I weigh in on that, you know, there is talk about who the 21st century illiterate is. It is not the person who has not gone to school. No. The 21st century illiterate is the person who is not in tune with real-time technology. And we cannot have a conversation around the whole question of fake news without the role that technology plays in aiding this unfortunate practice. There is a way in which you can read some news on social media, particularly on Facebook or on Twitter, but you can have a way of confirming what you have read. I'll tell you something very interesting. Just before I came in here, there was a picture on Facebook indicating that the immediate past chairman of APC voted in favor of the PDP governor. And there was a picture there with a ballot paper indicating that he had voted for PDP. This is clearly fake news. You know, all I did was to check NTA, to check channels, to check Punch. And once I got to Punch and I didn't see anything of the sort, I just knew this is something you have to ignore. So I am one of those who feel that the constitutional imperative for freedom of expression should be there. But at the same time, people who have taken up the responsibility to be pressmen and women must also be guided by the provisions of Section 22. We constantly talk about Section 22 when we have this conversation about the responsibility of the media to ensure accountability. That is the exact word that is used in the Constitution. And I would like to use this opportunity to appeal to people who are active on social media to ensure that there is accountability in what they do. Now, technology has made us, everybody is their own editor, you own your own media house, you're your reporter, you're your publisher, you're your everything. There's no level of control, you know. So that's at that level. But then we also have to trust but verify. Trust what is coming out on social media or any other source, but verify what you have said. Yeah, you talked about pockets of violence here and there. And
not as loud as we heard.
No, certainly not. And everybody was going into this election with a lot of fear. you know. And again, I go back to the point I was making earlier. We have not gotten there. If what we have seen today is as a result of the heavy deployment that we have had, why should it be so? Why should we conduct ourselves as people who are active within the 21st century only because we have seen people in uniform toting guns all over the place? You know, Dazang made the point about the fact that our aspiration is to get to a point where elections will be so normal that an election is going on somewhere. You don't need to shut down the economy. You don't need to close down shops. You don't need to restrict movement. It will be so seamless. That's our aspiration. That's where we desire to be. Why should we have peaceful conduct of elections in Edo simply because the National Peace Committee had to go there and to join forces with the Oba of Benin to say, please conduct yourselves as responsible people? You know, so we need an internal process that will first refine our power aspirations. What drives you to aspire for power? Is it service? Is it the perks of office? Is it the protection you're going to receive around the law and all of that? So we need to reflect on this. And once we're able to answer these questions, we will not see the kind of cutthroat competition that we see around power in this country.
Okay. Let's look at the angle of data. Data is core to elections. And we heard Dazan, before he left us, the INEC man, talk about the fact that today the majorly organized data is by INEC. We have National Population Commission, we have the Nigerian Communications Commission, we have the NIMC. So when can we have it harmonized to make election governance a lot easier, also data collection a lot easier?
We're in the process. I strongly believe that as a country, we are in the process, as a third world country, I'll say, we are in the process of harmonizing all these things. Because one, for very obvious reasons, we've seen that from the dawn of history, we've not been able to capture data. There is no country in this world that could undertake any research without a viable and vibrant methodology. And methodology involves data. So data is very paramount and is of great significance. Therefore, from dawn of history, we've evolved as a country under colonialism without having that input from the colonial masters that will capture our date of birth, the time that we die, what we're doing. Therefore, it is only now, now we're 6 years. And up to now, we've not been able to capture every Nigerian, especially in terms of his date of birth, the scholarship and learning that he has gone through, and also the time we die. There is no record. And therefore, any country that needs to progress must have record. Record is very significant, is of paramount importance. And therefore, central to this issue is this NIMC they've been able to introduce. Based on my level of thinking, I strongly believe that there is real need to harmonize this. Because if you look at the banks now, the banking system in Nigeria, using your ATM card, it has captured a lot of your data.
Yes, sure.
In some other countries, the ATM card can also, your NIMC card can also be part of your ATM. Sure. It can be everything, data bank, you can use it as a source of transaction, and it captures everything about you. But in Nigeria, unfortunately, it is only now that we've started, but we've not gone far. The NIMC is so sluggish. Let me give you an experience. I have done in Yola this NIMC registration for over 10 years. As I'm talking today, up to today, I've not been able to get it. I only have the photocopy. Up to today, as I'm talking to you, I've been sending, going there myself. They say, no, it's about being done. Up to today, I've not been able to get my own. But when it comes to banking, I have my this thing. So there is the need to harmonize all these things so that once and for all, we will be able to checkmate. Because if you have data, if you have all this thing put all together, it is from the bedrock of you either voting, going to hospitals, economy,
Sure.
looking at even the issue of your blood group and everything when you have accident, God forbid. But in the event you go to the hospital, if there's any problem, you'll be able, once you slug your card, they'll be able to get every data about you.
Sure.
So we must, as a matter of national emergency, this government must, through NIMC, come up with viable and vibrant, level of thinking where we have to have urgent, getting of this harmonization of all these things to give us a solid. I had Nick Dazan, my good friend, telling us that after 10 years or so, your PVC will expire. Why?
Okay. They talked about they are working towards that. Anyway, the International Identity Day just finished a few days ago, and I remember vividly in 2015 on assumption of office, Mr. President has emphasized on the need for all the identity agencies in Nigeria to harmonize. Talking about National Population Commission, Nigeria Communications Commission, INEC itself, and which other one again? NIMC. To harmonize their
and even the road safety.
Let's proceed.
Yes.
Let's proceed.
Driver's license and what have you.
Mike, very important before we forget, as much as we are not health experts, but the new normal has taught us ought to be health experts. What lessons should we draw from Edo State election towards Ondo regarding compliance with COVID-19 protocol?
It's extremely difficult. Just before I came into the studio here, I was reading one of the preliminary reports by one of the observation groups, Center LSD. They gave the election some kind of pass mark, but I noticed they gave an indication that social distancing was not observed at all during the election, and in most places people operated basically without the use of the mask. I think this is something that INEC, the political parties, the stakeholders involved, National Orientation Agency, media houses like you and all of that, we need to step up our game as far as conscientization and, raising consciousness is concerned. COVID-19 is real. It is still with us. Even if the number of cases that we record every day is reducing, the fact remains that it is still there. We have seen countries where there's some kind of next lockdown or whatever. I mean, it's happening in a few countries here and there, and we don't want to get into that kind of situation because of elections. It is entirely possible for you to maintain social distancing even while queuing up to have to cast your ballot. But much more fundamentally, there is a way you can go to the polling unit with your mask on your face, and this has to be really emphasized. In fact, it should be made a precondition for you accessing the polling unit, because it's very important. We can only participate or benefit from the dividends of democracy if we're alive. So if in the course of voting you die, what is really the essence, So we must take this very seriously. And I commend Center LSD for specifically pointing this out.
Is it an observer group?
Yes, it's an observer group.
For this election?
Yes. Center LSD.
Let's move on. Before now, up to some high platforms, people have thought that voter education was the sole responsibility of political parties. But we got sole responsibility of Independent National Electoral Commission. But over time, it has been proven that it is responsibility of political parties, even up to the fact candidates who are very savvy, elections-wise, are supposed to be able to educate the electorate. But moving on, it's an evolving process that does not have a defined destination. So, voter education-wise, will you say that we have rebased?
That's a very tough question. Tough in the sense that, you see, honestly and sincerely, I strongly believe that voter education should not in any way be consigned to INEC alone. But before I go there, the issue of this COVID-19 and the electorates, it is not only going to be the responsibility of the political. I mean, I strongly believe it's not only the responsibility of the government, but it should be the political parties. If some people can be buying rice or bread, how much will it cost for people to get masks and distribute to your people on the election day, or if you want to go and
very important.
The political parties should do that. Those contestants should do that. How much is a face mask?
Would that not reflect campaigning on elections day?
No, not on election day. You don't go to hunting expedition. You don't carry a fresh dog, taking him on the day of hunting expedition. No, you have to start from somewhere. A week or two to elections, get this into the people. Give them.
But without party logo?
No, without party logo.
Okay, beautiful.
You just get this blue or this in face mask, just give them out.
But there is a problem. A political party will not want to do a project like that without proving that they did it.
No, you see, that is why I'm saying that in a normal organized society, we should have the political parties, the political class, taking care of the people. Because what is the essence of you getting into power and your people are dying or will die after elections? Now, having gone back to this issue of public enlightenment, I strongly believe it's not only INEC that should be at the center stage of talking to Nigerians on the virtues and vices of electoral processes. The National Orientation Agency seems to be moribund. They seems more of a toothless bulldog that always barks but never bites. I've not been hearing much, and I don't know why. The Minister of Information, in his wisdom, should allow National Orientation Agency to just be a harmless at the doorsteps of the ministry. There should be reinvigoration of that ministry. We need a very viable publicity culture. I know Dr. Garba Abari is a very solid, very sound Nigerian that has a lot of potential here, a lot of things at his doorsteps to propagate. But I learned, as a journalist, I learned from a very reliable and highly, credible source that the National Orientation Agency is not being funded. They are lacking funds. So how do you operate? How do you move on to make public? Because in those days when we were young, we used to have these vans carrying majigi, we call them in Hausa majigi, that is these films.
Loudspeakers.
Loudspeakers and films and everything. You go to villages, you show the villagers films about electoral process. These are the things we should do. Because in a democratic setup, any democracy must be built based on the convivial and conventional issues that are propping up. We should not say that because you've done it about 10, 20 years ago, that's enough. No. There are young people now that are coming of age to go into voting. Therefore, there's a need for them to be educated. People should be educated on the virtues of democracy. We strongly believe that now, the old brigades amongst us, because we are also now falling into that group, we are gradually being phased out. And now it is the new, the youths that are coming up.
Sure.
A lot of Nigerian youths now, they don't want to go into politics. They say politics is a dirty game. If it is a dirty game, so you leave it to dirty people. You don't want to play a dirty game. People must be educated. The government must, as a matter of agency, try to fund its media houses, especially the NTA and all these radio houses, fund National Orientation Agency very well, fund the political class. This issue of information dissemination, information aggregation, and information dispensation must be an all-round affair that should encompass everybody. It should not be left in the hands of only INEC, because INEC has a lot to do. Yes. And that information management, it is not cut out to manage information. INEC is cut out to manage elections.
Sure.
Therefore, those that are in the forefront of managing information should be given the latitude. You can't call a carpenter to come and be a medical doctor. Will you use a digger and to come and start putting
let's proceed.
I would say
Let's proceed.
Yes.
Let's proceed.
Let me weigh in. There are rather vertical and horizontal perspectives to this issue of voter education. Okay. And I say vertical and horizontal because there is the parts that would deal with available infrastructure. And I think technology has aided information dissemination now. But what about content? We have had political parties, even in this country, that had clearly identifiable ideology. I was barely 10, 11, 12 when the likes of MPP, NPN, UPN and all
GMPP,
of that were very
PRP.
active. And if any of these parties was mentioned, even from their logos or the messages that were coming from there, you could identify them with a particular thing.
Yes, I cover the elections.
Good. Now, what can you identify with today's political parties? They are basically the same. Same actors, moving from one to another, just as platforms. It used to be about ideology. Ideology has caved in, and we talk about issues now. What is the primary issue that is on the mind of APC, for instance? What's the primary issue that is on the mind of the PDP now? It's difficult to say. So it becomes difficult to educate the average Nigerian voter. It's not just to say, come out and vote. What should determine who I vote for? So it starts not even from the political parties, it starts from the candidates that are aspiring to office. What agenda do you have for the people you aspire to represent or the people you aspire to lead? And that agenda will be distilled from the issues that your party holds dear, or for want of a better word, the ideology of your political party. So it goes back to the political parties to begin to identify themselves very clearly with issues that the average Nigerian can identify with, you know. So in the US election, for instance, you hear about foreign policy, migration, you know, all kinds of issues that you can identify if an average American voter will say, this is what I want to vote for a particular party for. In Nigeria, what's it? You know, so this is the difficulty. And again, I challenge our political parties, I challenge INEC, I challenge various stakeholders, you know, to have a rigorous process that will lead us to, you know, defining what really is the issue that is uppermost on our minds. It becomes then easier to sell yourself either as a candidate or as a political party to the average Nigerian voter.
Sure.
Yeah.
You were also to respond to voter education, but you decided to veer into, is it COVID-19?
Oh, I did on COVID-19.
I
did.
The other aspect of it is the political parties. There came a time during elections, it looked quite competitive. You could see clearly 5-10 political parties almost at par. When you see the result, you see it's sometimes it is one political party down there that hits. But now you just see during elections, just two will stand out clearly. The other one just go under. How could we resolve this? Moving on. And let me look at the two of you.
Okay.
It's an open question.
I can start.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, there is a challenge of the kind of, we are confronted with the challenge of the kind of political system that we have in place in Nigeria. Our constitution is decidedly federal in nature. But in operating this constitution, we are anything but a federal state. All right? If you want to appoint a high court judge in my home state, Benue, you have to come to Abuja. You have to obtain permission from the National Judicial Council and all of that. If you have to construct a road that is leading from Makudi to Cross River, it is a responsibility of the federal government. Meantime, it passes through your state and it is a road. You know, so the kind of federalism we practice really makes issues a bit difficult for us to deal with in this country. And I say this precisely because all politics is local. It is about the local man there, or it's about the local community there and all of that. So when you hear, for instance, in the United States about the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, it's not for us to believe that there are no other political parties. No, there are. If I want a political party that will deal with issues concerning the farmer and the herder, for instance, I should have that political party. You know, and the first step towards doing that will be for us to allow political parties to evolve. This idea that INEC must register you, you must be a party that is recognized by the Electoral Act, a federal legislation and all of that, poses some kind of difficulty. Okay. Some people are not interested in coming to Abuja. They're not interested in the National Assembly. They're not interested in anything that has to do with Abuja. They just are concerned with their local government. Okay,
let me hold you there. When we come back, we should be going to Benin now. Here, our student Benin is ready. When we come back, we shall be looking towards election, the conduct of elections, and early release of results. But let's go to Benin now. I can see my colleague there in the studio. What's the update from your end? There. Agatha, what's the update from your end?
Thank you very much, Mia. We are now in the home stretch. The D-Day is gradually winding down, and most important aspect of the electoral process, talking about the people expressing their choice through the ballot, is complete. Voting has been concluded in all parts of the state. Now attention is now shifted to the umpire that's in the INEC to sort, collate what is in the ballot boxes. Well, as attention shifts to INEC, we have also shifted our operational base here to the INEC headquarters here in Duwawa, Benin City, where the action will actually be taking place from now on. It's been a long day. Favorable weather earlier in the day, though we have a little bit of rain here now. There is also heavy security presence here. Like I said, people have already decided, and what is left is the sorting, collation, and then the final phase, that's declaration of results. But I have here a professor in the University of Benin, immediate past Dean, Faculty of Arts, University of Benin, former orator of the university, Professor Edi Eragbe. He joins me live now, and he will be sharing his thoughts on the process so far. You're welcome, Prof.
Yeah,
always good.
Thank you very much.
Always good to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, Prof, the much talked about Edo governorship election.
Yeah.
The day is already gone. The fear of voter apathy is it's falling flat in its face, and expectations of widespread violence is not has not materialized so far. I'm sure you went out to vote and you observed the situation. What do you make of the process from where we are coming from to where we are now?
Well, I want to really first, as a very religious people, thank God for what has transpired today in Edo State. We won't say that the fears were unfounded in terms of whether there was going to be violence or not, because just before we got to this location, a lot of interventions had to come up that helped to douse the tension that was building up as far as the state was concerned. Today, as it has come down, which I must say is almost characteristic of Edo State, it has almost been violence-free. There have been hiccups here and there. Reports have reached different locations indicating that there were certain attempts actually materialized where they were snatching of buses and things of that nature, but not at the level of bloodletting at all. And for this, we really must thank all the key actors that worked to say, look, it is not worth spilling the blood at all. Let us go and express ourselves, and let us know eventually who the people of Edo State want to take charge of their affairs for the next 4 years. So, as you rightly mentioned, I was privileged to again participate in the electoral system, this time again as a voter. I voted in the University of Benin, which has under Obia Northeast local government area. Everywhere was peaceful. And before I left home this evening, I got calls that the results have been released. And true to what INEC has been saying also, results have been mounted on the portal from different parts of the state. And so what we are waiting for is collation, as you have mentioned, because the rains that came immediately at the end of the elections, because the elections were programmed to end at 2:30. But about 3:30, the heavens opened up. And as we speak now, the rains are gradually dying down. But we know it's going to cause a little bit of hitches in terms of movement from different parts of the state.
Okay.
But by and large, we must say that those people again are proving to say that we, in quote, are not a violent people. And we must thank the organ of Benin. Our traditional rulers, religious people, And of course, even the national body, that is people being led by the former president, Abubakar and all, for all their interventions. And Mr. President himself, who showed great commitment because of the security presence that we had. I believe that must have contributed to the peace that has been witnessed during today's elections.
Okay, I was just going to say, with all of what we have seen all through today, what the hue and cry was all about in the first place.
No, as I said, they were not unfounded, because the posture was really one of desperation. If we look at the key actors in this, statements that were made, careers, things of that nature, and then some actions that actually took place. Because it's not against the historical records of what happened in these elections, that during the campaigns, there were actually some violent actions. Shootings took place at all. But luckily, so far, we've not had reports of deaths being recorded. So what I'm saying is that there was really justification for the palpable fear at that time. But the interventions, we must not underestimate what happened there. The Oba of Benin, His Royal Majesty, calling our leaders together and then listening to them, and all other interventions that took place, and the disposition of the contestants themselves, we should not take that for granted. Because just like it happened with the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, when he said in 2015 that his no life will be lost because of his ambition and all, we saw that also coming from the current governor of our state, and then the key opponents, we are saying, not that there were no other groups as it were, they were all showing the disposition to peaceful election. So what I'm saying is that there was fear. And of course, one other angle we look at sometimes, because it has some ambivalent implications. The presence of the military, the presence of the security forces also must have contributed to people now feeling secure. Because the movement that we saw was that nothing was going to happen. And as I have said, we must not fail to thank God that things have turned out this way so far.
Okay, you agree with me that before we continue discussions with you, let's just take this situation report, security situation report from Austin Edemodu. He has been following the security situation in the state. Austin, it's over to you.
I must tell you that all seriousness has been adopted by security agents in terms of how far they have deployed personnel to this assignment, the Edo State gubernatorial election. 31,000 police officers have been deployed for this assignment. We have 8 commissioners of police and 1 DIG who have been ensuring that security of lives and property of Edo people are in check. And of course, the police command has actually been carrying out surveillance activities. A few hours ago, we saw a helicopter surveillance within the city of Edo State and the length and breadth of Edo State as it were. And the police command is not giving anything to chance. At the INEC headquarters here in Benin, the DIG alongside with his other police security sister agencies visited the INEC office to ascertain the level of activities going on there. And from what we saw, we could see that the police were prepared for this assignment. They have the K9 dogs stationed there, apart from other security men that were on duty. From there, the Commissioner of Police, alongside the DIG, also moved to some other polling units within the Edo city to ascertain the level of activities in terms of security in those areas. And when asked about how he assessed the security situation, judging from the earlier, promises made by the police to ensure a hitch-free election, he did reiterate the police determination to ensure that the lives and property of Edo people are safe, and that voters, after casting their ballot, should ensure that they leave the polling units and wait for the results.
We're asking that all and sundry should still please ensure that we don't cross the line. When we don't cross the line, we'll have a seamless result. Asking that all members of the electorate should do the needful, as we have put in everything in place to ensure that we have a hitch-free exercise.
When asked on the issues of pockets of violence, most polling units as reported across the state, the DIG has this to say.
We're on top of the game. There's no action that have not attracted a reaction from us. That's why we have a seamless relationship at our control room. Every issues that have been brought up, minor ones. There are no evil skirmishes. Those people that come, we've been able to resolve it, and we have record of all the activities. It is an ongoing exercise. Success shall be achieved by God's grace.
By and large, it has been a free and fair exercise on the part of the security agents. I would do hope that at the end of the day, the Edo people will be better off to get a free and fair election results that will be favorable to everyone. It's been Austin Edemodo reporting from Benin City.
Thank you so much, Austin, for that security situation in Edo. We'll be rejoining our Abuja studios shortly to join Omini Ode. Sorry if I said Mie Ogidi earlier. You know, when you talk about INEC in NT, Mie urgently comes to mind, but sorry about the mix-up. Prof, coming back to you.
Yeah.
People will readily say we are in a dicey situation. This is a very important moment for us to experience, for the peace we've experienced to continue. Going forward, what do you think should be done that has not been done so that the peace we've experienced will continue?
It is obvious, especially from the experiences we have had before, that there are different stages in this whole process. And one has been concluded now, as you said, the casting of the votes and all. And let's also hope that in most of the locations, the counting of the ballots are taking place. What is therefore necessary is that the security apparatus that has been put in place should not let go or let down at all. There should be greater vigilance at this moment, because experiences have shown that this is a critical time, that people that want to disrupt the process can heighten their plans as it were. Right. So what is called for is greater vigilance at this time. It is definitely yet not uhuru. It's not yet over. And we must commend the security forces for what they have done so far, just as was mentioned now. That all actions also brought about reaction.
Okay,
Let them know they must get ready for anything that can come up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Eddie Eragbe, Professor from the University of Benin. Thank you so much for coming on Edo Decide Studio.
Thank you.
At this point, we will now join Omini in Abuja.
Thank you so much, Agatha, for the update from Benin. Well, from what the DIG said, no action that has not attracted a reaction from the police. I believe it cuts across. Well, we don't have all the time. We're not done yet. We're just taking a long break. And Edo Decide Studios resumes any moment NT decides to come up when action starts. But for now, we are sure to resume by early morning tomorrow. Meanwhile, let me quickly thank Mike Utaha, public affairs analyst and legal practitioner. It was nice being on the studio with us.
Pleasure. Good to see you again.
Ibrahim Modibu. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, the people of Edo have decided it's left for the umpire to declare results, and we believe it's a matter of countdown to the results, and we shall be seeing what it will look like coming from above 2 million voters, 2,627 polling units, and 208 voting points across 18 local government areas of Edo State. There is a countdown. For now, we go on a break and we'll resume as soon as possible. Thanks for being there.